Girl, I'm a military person. I don't start trouble with people.
I understand that, but it was already.
Can I please go on my break? I gotta go to work tomorrow.
The fucking plane is still right here. You didn't even try to ask anybody, man. You sitting right here not doing nothing. Fucking ask somebody first. Do that. Fucking you talking about? Go ask somebody on the fucking plane. The plane ain't fucking going yet. Go ask somebody. Do that. Fuck you talking about? All that fucking money we pay you on the fucking plane. Ask some motherfucking. No, fuck that.
Sir, you
Fuck you
can't
talking
sir.
about? Hey, go ask somebody. He got it. He got to ask somebody. Ask somebody first.
I understand that.
Don't just say no. Don't just say no. All that fucking money we spend, go ask somebody first. If they can't pull off.
I really thought that was going to come to blows, to be honest. I don't know why the level of aggressiveness. I understand being upset. You bought a ticket. You're late. The guy said, that's it. This rules are rules, you know. Why be so aggressive? Why do we have to live in a society where some people act this way? It just, poor guy is probably making minimum wage working. And you think he deserves this? Then I see this video of this lady commenting. Watch this.
As a racial justice advocate, I'm often invited to give talks or to do workshops where I talk to white people about race. A big part of my practice is to offer real life stories, examples, that type of thing, that help white people to be able to identify white supremacy in everyday life. My husband's family is white, and I often use the cultural differences between my family and his family as a way to help white people see their whiteness. There's one example that I use that always gets a ton of pushback. My husband and I were late to our first Thanksgiving with his family. I say late because it started at 12. We got there at 12:10, but whenever we got there at 12:10, everybody was already sat down and eating. I didn't know that. I use this illustration to point out that different cultures have different understandings of time, lateness, and what it means to be polite. Without fail, a white person will push back and say that lateness is impolite. I always use this as a teachable moment. I usually ask a series of pointed questions that challenge their assumptions. Sometimes it takes a lot of work, but by the end, they're able to identify how white cultural dominance works in this one small area of life, which opens the door for them to start peeling the onion.
I can see why she gets a lot of pushback on this, because she's one of these, critical race theory types that goes and speaks all over the place. So this type of whatever you want to call it is being spread. You know, the white supremacy. Oh, geez. So I don't agree with this, really. You know, I think that being on time is a cultural norm across the world. I also don't think, like, even if we entertain that it was just a cultural difference between African Americans and white people, which I don't see it. But even if it was, like, who should conform? Should businesses and people change the way they are for a 14% or less of the population? I mean, if someone's having a wedding, they said, or, you know, a reception, whatever was going on, should they start 10 minutes late because a few of the people attending are African American? No other culture would expect that. If it's, you know, Indian or you know, Latin American cultures may start eating late, they wouldn't expect you to start late because of that. It doesn't make no sense to me. Why should we conform? And this ties back with that level of aggressiveness that we see often, right? In these type of incidences, we saw at Chipotle, we see it here, but there's hundreds of videos all over the place. And I always wonder, how come on average, it seems that these minority population behave more aggressively than their counterparts? And my theory is because we're constantly telling this subgroup that they're, you know, victim of this, a victim of this, and we're telling them even being on time is white supremacy. Well, of course, you're being told all this stuff. You're going to push back. Like, you know, the guy working there was white. I'm sure it wasn't a coincidence. You know, there was a lady not too long ago, and let's not even get into that. But this is what I see. When you're constantly telling a subgroup that they're victims, that they've been oppressed, and that they're being mistreated, they're going to believe it. And they're going to push back. A good example of this was I've heard people say, oh, well, the cops don't believe us. I've even had, you know, women before saying, well, we report crime, but cops mistreat us and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, well, I've been jumped, robbed, you know, assaulted. Different things have happened, gotten in fights in my life, right? And I've called the cops before. One time, my car was stolen. I called the cops. Another time, I was jumped in a McRae's, right? I called the cops to report these crimes. They didn't care. They didn't take it serious. I described the person who did it. They're like, oh, man, well, you know, jails are full of those. What do you want me to do? Then we're not going to find them. You know, they put no effort. They really talked down to me even. I was young, broke. This goes to say I'm white. I can't really say, oh, well, it's because I was this or was that. But if I was, that's what I would say. So my lived experience and like these inputs of, you know, culturally, society telling me this stuff, that's what I would interpret as. I would always interpret any bad luck that I've had as, oh man, I'm being shafted because of race or because I'm foreign or because of this. And these are just not things that are productive. I think the more you do this stuff that this lady's doing, the more you're going to have these BLM riots, the more people are going to become violent in that subgroup. Am I crazy? I mean, honestly, I don't know. Like, I understand that there's certain groups that have been affected through history, so they're having a harder time getting out of poverty, being established. And so within reason, society can give incentives and a helping hand to help these groups achieve financial independence, because what's good for them is good for everybody, right? But this stuff is overboard. It's overboard, and it's having a more of a negative impact than a good one. I see, and I hate to say this, but I think really when I think of my peers, my experiences, and so it's very subjective, but I see a lot more racism, open racism coming from the African American population towards white people than I see going the other way around. Physically, verbally, all of that. And probably because society considers that justified, really. We allow it. We're like, well, this stuff happened. There was racism, there was slavery, and so this is allowed. Instead, we should just set the new rules, and that's what it should be. You know, racism should apply both ways. Instead, you'll still see people trying to argue that white people can't be racist. Hey, buddy, my son walked in. Okay, I guess that means that's the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching.